First, we will take you back to the year of 1836, when Texas claimed its independence from Mexico. This is one major issue that provoked all the major battles leading into the Mexican-American War, such as Palmiro Ranch, Resaca de la Palma, and the Thornton Affair. The Thornton Affair occurred 10 years after Texas claimed its independence in the year 1846. During this time, there were still many conflicts between Mexico and the United States over which river was the border between the two countries, the Rio Grande or the Nueces River. Due to the conflicts, Mexicans believed if the U.S. was to trespass over what they claimed was their land, it would be considered an obvious act for war. Therefore, this led into the Thornton Affair when General Zachary Taylor heard that the Mexican cavalry was about to invade the U.S. territory.
General Zachary Taylor was the first general of the U.S. Army of Occupation Brigadier. As he was traveling from Corpus to the Rio Grande, he heard that a Mexican force crossed the river. He then dispatched Captain Seth B. Thornton and about 60 dragoons to check the river crossing on April 24th. Against the advice of Chapita, his Mexican guide, Thornton pushed on the following day, April 25, 1846. While the dragoons were exploring the building of the abandoned Rancho de Carricitos, General Anastasio Torrejon, Mexican cavalry closed the gates and opened fire on the trapped U.S. troopers from the cover of the surrounding thick chaparral.
The survivors were sent across the Rio Grande to Matamoros as prisoners of war. Torrejon sent one wounded soldier back to Taylor's camp in an ox cart with a note stating that he could not adequately treat the soldier's wounds. The first major armed conflict between the Mexican and U.S. forces along the Rio Grande gave Polk the opportunity to claim that Mexico has invaded our territory and shed American blood on American soil. 2 days later, the U.S. Congress declared war on the Republic of Mexico.
Mexico's army was about 3 times larger than the U.S. Army in 1846, but most of the Mexican soldiers were untrained peasants, Native Americans, or criminals forced into military duty. Many had never fired a gun since Mexico's law forbade the lower classes of Native Americans from owning guns. The average soldier had to provide food and supplies for himself. Regulations for Mexican uniforms changed several times, and uniforms were in short supply for the regular soldiers. The standard uniform for infantry was dark blue tailcoat with white canvas pants and the tall stovepipe-shaped hat. Mexican officers often wore French-style uniforms with a lot of brass and braid. Some cavalry units wore brass helmets with large showy feathers. Many of the officers were educated, but few were trained for military tactics.
William Hardy wrote a letter to Taylor stating the incidents as they occurred. He says in his letter after they closed the gates and opened fire, "The officers and men did everything that the fearless could accomplish, but the infantry had stationed themselves in the field on the right of the passageway, and the cavalry lined the exterior fence, and our retreat was hopelessly cut off, leaving our men in a perfect state of disorder. I rode up to Captain Thornton and told him that our only hope of safety was in tearing down the fence. He gave the order, but could not stop his horse, nor would the men stop. It was useless, for by this time the enemy had gained our rear in great numbers, foreseeing that the direction which Captain Thornton was pursuing would lead to the certain destruction of himself and men without the possibility of resistance. This resulted in 11 deaths and 6 wounded."
2 to 3 weeks after the affair, on the evening of May 9, 1846, the president at the time and leader of the Democratic Party, James K. Polk, was handed the dispatches from General Taylor reporting the Thornton Affair and declaring hostilities to have commenced. On May 12, 1846, the U.S. Congress declared war on Mexico. Suddenly, this encounter was no longer about the commercial interest or whose territory was whose, but the fact that American blood was shed on American soil for the first time in history.